we believe that they have a spiritual level, access, spiritual existence that far succeeds ours.
Right.
That when they're telling us how not to be angry, how to be faithful to our wives, how to raise godly children, how to humble ourselves, how to forgive, they're telling us all those things because they already have mastered them. So when we find out, which you will, that they have not mastered them, and that they are struggling just like you. I can always remember where I was sitting when I had a realization like that with a particular person that I had a particular spiritual leader I had put on a pedestal in my mind. I remember like the world shook. It was cognitive dissonance where I was unsettled and I said, oh my gosh, this person is doing the very thing that I'm tempted to do or that I have done before. This person is doing the very thing that I accuse my enemies of doing.
What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. Now, let's just get to it. The whole secular sacred divide. There is no distinction in the scriptures. Some of us have trust issues with God, and some of us, it's like, does God really got us? You can't engage the culture with the gospel that first has not engaged you. Like, you know how people are like, oh, that's just who I am. Nah.
Keep. Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
Shaping the code.
To my right, I have the most spiritual gangster that you will ever meet, as you can tell by the bandana. Channeling Tupac for Jesus.
East side.
East side of the kingdom, he means.
I mean,
I have a dude right here who, listen, man, we just got back from Philadelphia, doing a ministry event with our homie ambassador, and the stuff that KB shared, man, was phenomenal. We was on a panel discussion. We was on a panel together, and we had some folks that were asking some really, really good questions about life, about ministry.
Yes.
It was great. But what's even greater was KB's answers. And the things that he said after he got done speaking, I was like, why are we even up here?
What?
And to give you a sense of who was up there, was me. Which I'm nobody, of course.
Shut your mouth.
It was Trip Lee. He's somebody. It was Ambassador. It was Shy Lynn. It was Dayton. I think that was it, right?
Yeah.
And then this behemoth. Right? If you can imagine like what Godzilla looks like walking through the city and all of the people are this small, but Godzilla's huge. That's what he looked like on stage next to us. And so I just want to give you your props, brother. The Lord has been using you mightily. And the Lord is mighty to save, and He has done some saving through your ministry, my brother.
Well, I praise God for that.
And
well, thank you so much. Ameen, thank you. I just wanted to say real quick.
You cut me off.
They say that you got to give people their flowers before they pass, right?
Right.
You don't want to wait to the funeral to say all the things that you wish you would have communicated to them while they were alive.
I agree.
Let me tell you,
even though at your funeral you're gonna resurrect.
Stop it.
And then preach the sermon. He's going to preach a sermon at his funeral.
And then return
and then
to my
die
rest.
again. And then go back to his casket.
Who was that, Solomon? It was like, why? Was it Solomon? Who was it?
What?
There was Saul brought him back.
Oh, yeah.
It was a judge.
He literally said, why have you disturbed me?
He said, why have you disturbed me from my rest? I want to come back to this place. But honestly, bro, you got to give people their flowers now. You know what I'm saying? And the only thing that I would add to that is that there's not enough flowers. You cannot give this man his flowers. You need to give him his flower shop.
Flower shop.
This man is the plug for where everybody gets their flowers to get to people.
1-800-Flowers. That's what
you know what I'm saying? He is the company. What J. Cole said. He said, you want smoke? I'm a full nicotine company.
Oh, I thought you was about to say something else with an N. I'm so glad that it was nicotine. I thought it was about to go left very quick. I was getting ready to say, bro, YouTube.
Said, hold on, you're a little too comfortable today.
YouTube is taking us off the air right now.
Please, bro. Y'all make some noise for the man, Ameen the Dream. But it is not about either of us today. Today, we have been honored with the presence of an Ethiopian legend You understand me?
I'm talking about if you go to Ethiopia,
Yes.
there's monuments
You'll
to this
see
man.
pictures of him around the country.
People walk around they walk around Ethiopia with a lanyard on with his photo on
That's
it.
right. He is a beacon of hope and possibility.
Yes. If you go into any of the stores, they have 3D printed images of him on
That's
the
right.
counter.
That's right.
Crazy.
This is how it works, right? Like in like the ancient Near East, there would be the icon or the image of the leader all around the country, so that you would know that your leader was with you.
Right.
That's where that concept Emmanuel came from, right?
Yeah.
God with us. He is the visible image of the invisible God.
Ooh.
He is a billboard that your leader is with you.
Ooh, the son is exegeting the father, as Ambassador said.
Yeah, that's John 1, baby.
Woo.
Colossians 1:2. Ebenezer, the Ethiopian superpower minister of the gospel, theologian, politician, podcaster, author, writer, friend, ally.
Yes.
He is the visible image of all of the invisible things that you love and like about the world. And in his country and in this world, when you see his face, you know that goodness is with you. You know that possibility is with you.
Oh, man.
You know hope
Oh.
is with you.
Yes,
Ladies
I
and
can.
gentlemen, make some noise for he. Make some noise for him. Ebenezer, welcome to the podcast, brother.
It's an honor. That's crazy. That's wild.
We're always just shy of blasphemy.
We're like teetering
Like,
on the
blasphemy's
line.
right.
I think that God is like, watch yourself.
Yeah, hold on.
Hold on now. Hold the phone.
God at the edge of his seat, like,
Lightning's about to strike. I'm like, hey, yo.
Lord, please forgive me if there's anything
Lord, help
in
us.
there. I'm sorry.
Forgive us.
Welcome, bro. Ebenezer is a good friend of ours,
Yes.
pastor, podcaster, influencer, thinker, and friend.
Just a great friend, y'all.
We have just we've just benefited so much by just being friends with Ebenezer.
Yeah.
So we've served at his church, the church that he was pastoring, a couple churches that he served at in Minnesota. We've just had this gospel partnership for many, many years, and we're hoping that God will continue this partnership into the future. Now, we're just gonna get right into this conversation and let this thing kind of go where it's gonna go. I am perplexed right now. Okay.
Why are you perplexed?
Today has been a perplexing day.
Yes.
Okay.
Before we got on camera.
Before we got on camera,
Yeah.
we had about 3 conversations. One of those conversations was involving the church and churches in general. Okay.
Yeah.
The second conversation that I had with somebody that was over the phone that was talking about Gen Z and what really is going on with Gen Z. We like to say that Gen Z is walking away from God, but that really is largely a particular demographic, a part of Gen Z.
It is a certain demographic.
But there's a lot of exciting things happening in Gen Z right along with that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
true.
with there are a lot of people that are a part of mainline evangelicalism, well, mainline Protestants, and then evangelicals that have become disinterested in Christianity. But that is not the story of what we're seeing in many of these communities that we're serving in here and abroad.
Very true.
Seeing a hunger for Jesus among Gen Z. And it's been super encouraging to serve on this podcast, and as we have gone from city to city and have got to spend time with people. And then the last thing is that's been perplexing is just the trajectory of life, bro.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting older, and that means that everyone who we thought was old when we were kids, if they're still here, they're
Right.
even older.
Yeah, true.
And you don't get to a place where you outrun all the problems of your youth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you were struggling with lust and anxiety and pride and contentment, and sanctification doesn't work in such a way that it leaves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll never forget, bro. A preacher was saying that he was at the deathbed of an elder at his church, bro. Dude was well into his 70s, maybe 80s. And he said he walked up to the brother and was like, so man, how does it feel, man? Glory is around the corner. I mean, the dude was terminal. And he said, man, the only thing on my mind right now is that I never stopped watching porn.
Wow.
That's what he said, bro. On his deathbed, bro.
Wow.
I'm thinking about another story. This just in particular with lust. There's other sins besides lust. But you wouldn't know if you went to a men's group in Christian circles. But another pastor was telling me how he was having a conversation with an older saintly brother, and he said while they were talking, his eyes darted off, and then he darted back. Like eyes darted off, and then he came back to the convo. And then while this pastor was talking to this other pastor, the pastor just started tearing up. He started tearing up. He was like, what? They weren't even talking about it.
Like anything crazy, yeah.
He just said, man, I just didn't think I would still be battling this.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I think the same thing applies with fear and worry. My experience is if you don't get a good fighting relationship with both of those things right now, life is going to give you more and more things to worry and be anxious about. And time will not heal it.
That's true.
You will not be able to manage and pad your life in such a way where your kids do what they're supposed to do and your wife does what she's supposed to do and your boss does what. If you don't get a good relationship with anxiety and worry right now, it just increases the older you get.
Yeah.
And it's just perplexing that it feels like we talked about this yesterday, that if you could put life on a graph, it almost feels like it's a circle that spins upward by God's grace. Like you're getting better, but it feels like in the process there's these moments where it's like we're going back. Have we done anything? What are we even excited about? Oh wait, there's some hope. Okay, we're growing. Praise God. And now we're back again, and it's just this circling up to glory.
Mm-hmm.
Spiraling up to glory.
Man, that's a good, good way to put spiraling up. That's
sanctification, that's what it feels like sometimes, a spiraling up.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I'd like to start the conversation talking about what's going on with the local assembly right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me just start by saying I have no qualms with the interpretation that God's vision for mission in this world should be launched out of the local church.
Yeah,
that is an interpretation of Scripture. I think that's what the Scripture teaches. I love the local church. I must love her because I've had every reason that at least the devil has given me every opportunity to not love, but I feel constrained by my love for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I do my hopes and my dreams all center around local churches being strong and healthy and impactful.
Right.
That's the city or the neighborhood would be worse off if these churches weren't there. That is a dream. That's a dream for me. And I have faith that is where God will lead us. But as I think about it, I have two conflicting emotions. One emotion is discouragement, bro.
Mm.
It's discouraging. It just seems to be there's just all these gaps. See, let me just go through, let me just say it and then I'm gonna kick it to y'all. Y'all help me with this. First of all, there's a generational gap. One of the things that we have learned from secular psychologists, and I'm saying what I'm saying, I know folks gonna be upset with me for saying this, but I'm just saying it. I'm gonna say it, and I'm willing to be wrong. I think secular psychologists are wrong about a lot of things. One of the things that secular psychologists say about Gen X, somewhat boomers,
mm-hmm.
is that there is a cultural kind of development that makes it difficult for folks in Gen X to submit or partner with people from younger generations.
Yeah.
And they used to run the world.
Yes.
They run the world.
Well, they ran, Gen X.
They've been all our presidents for our lifetime, with the exception of Joe Biden.
A lot of them have been Gen Xers. A lot of folks in Congress, a lot of, they've literally run and built what we have now. They
built the world, they run the world.
Yeah.
And empowering the young people beneath them is a challenge.
Yeah.
Developing them. I don't know how many times I've heard someone from Generation X only reflect on millennials as people that don't like authority. That's all they are.
Yeah.
They're people that don't submit to authority. And I think there is some truth to that, but there's a lot of misunderstanding to that too.
Yeah, because a lot of people and a lot of millennials have not just millennials, but a lot of newer generations have a very good gag reflex for what older generations are doing that are not good.
Yes.
And then the older
They have trouble submitting to mess
Exactly.
and hypocrisy.
Exactly.
Which sometimes isn't seen as offensive.
Right.
In these circles as it should. As we think it should be.
In certain circles it's not. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that the complaint is millennials don't like to submit to authority, which there is some truth there at times, but a lot of it too is that millennials are holding y'all accountable for the stuff that y'all are doing that is toxic. And it may not necessarily be your fault. It's the way that the generation was developed. You were developed, the world was a certain way when you came to be. That shaped you to be a certain way. So you're gonna live that out. But millennials will come and say, hey, this is not the most healthy way to do things.
Right.
And there's a different way in which the world is working now that it would be good for you to recognize because it doesn't work exactly the same as it did for you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And things are going a different direction, but that can feel very much so like you're bucking against authority.
That's right. It does.
You know?
Yeah. Because you're not just lining up.
We're also perpetually immature. And we're perpetually children as well.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. It's like millennials are perpetually kids
right.
that have a lot of growing to do, which we wouldn't deny that we're young and we still have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But millennials are also like, they have children and homes now.
Yes.
Right.
Like it's
Mortgage,
not
a home
in a
mortgage.
mortgage.
Yes.
They have a mortgage.
401ks.
They have children.
You're infantilizing adults.
Exactly. You are infantilizing adults. You have millennials that have 3, 4, 5 kids. You have millennials that own businesses.
Yeah.
You have millennials that are in positions of power.
That's right. That's right.
But the way that millennials get talked about as if though they're just still young, like we're still like we're in high school. You know what I mean? You'll see what it's like when yes and no.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yes.
Yeah.
There is stuff that we haven't experienced that you have experienced yet, but there's also a considerable amount of things that we have experienced.
Yes.
As adults.
And we're in a completely different world. And I think that's really hard for older generations to accept as well, that this is not the world you grew up in.
Yeah.
The way the world worked for you when you were my age is
It's
not the way the world
totally
works
different.
today.
Totally
and
different.
we have insights on that.
Right.
But this has been a perpetual issue for the church for a while now.
Absolutely.
Is that we're not good at empowering the people that are coming up behind us.
Yeah.
We there's not a good pipeline, and then even their concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you to even speak to Ebenezer. One of the things that I you'll hear from older generations is the scoffing at rest and therapy.
Oh, yes.
As kind of the two attributes of weak-minded human beings.
Yeah.
Or we're putting it over Jesus.
Especially so in the Ethiopian church, we experience this a lot. To go to therapy means you're not putting your trust in Jesus. So I actually studied psychology in my undergrad, and when I announced that at my church, everybody was up in arms because,
Like, bro, you might as well be studying witchcraft.
Yeah, right.
Literally.
right.
They're like, you don't want to be playing with different spirits. You don't want to be messing around with the darkness. Like,
You're a medium. That's what you're trying to say. Yeah. Went to school to be a necromancer.
So where are your tarot cards?
For real though, that's how it felt. And in my particular context, therapy was demonized, and therapy was a sign that you don't trust that God can intervene in your season, intervene in your situation. And so we felt that too. And even what you guys are talking about, one of my favorite reasons why I like going on tour, doing these live podcast shows, is because of the Q&A.
Yes, us too. We love Q&A.
Q&A is amazing. And what I've found to be true is millennials, it's not that they're rebelling against authority. They just got questions.
Yes.
And there's no safe space for them to unpack their questions.
Yes.
And I grew up in a church context where if you had questions, that means you had doubt. And if you had doubt, you're not walking in faith. And if you're not walking in faith, then we got to pray for you and not give you authority in the community, right? Because you're going to be a danger to our context. And so even for me, the reason why I started the podcast, Shaping the Culture, is because a lot of people my age didn't necessarily have a problem with Jesus. They had a problem with the culture of the church.
Yes.
And so for us, if you're a guy and you get your ears pierced, you're in sin.
Right.
You got a tattoo, you're in sin.
Right.
And there was no place to challenge, because we had people in their word and they're like, what do we do with this passage in Revelation 19? God has a tattoo on his thigh.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
What do you do with the passage in the Old Testament where it says men shouldn't get a lineup, right?
Right.
How do you're at the barbershop and then the authorities that be are like, oh no, don't question us. We know what's best.
Yeah.
I love my mom. Something my mom would say growing up that was always funny but true. We'd ask her a question. She would say no, and we'd say why? Because the sky is very high, and then I just have to accept that. That's just like there's no explanation.
I'm
There's
definitely
no,
using that
that's
mug.
it. Yeah.
Have you seen the sky?
Yeah.
It's high.
Asking me why.
And we just kind of look at it like, all right, I don't know what to do with this information. And so a lot of millennials, they left the church not because they didn't love God, but because they didn't know how to understand God, and they didn't have a generation above them that would help them wrestle with the text, wrestle in the text. And so, yeah, I being a millennial myself, the issue isn't that we hate authority, and I feel like we have to address that. Questioning, bringing concern is not a form of rebellion.
Right.
We're seeking to understand.
That's right.
I think we're misunderstood.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I could not agree more.
That is
And
a
I
fact.
think, even if someone wants to push back on what we're saying and say that we are appropriating the reality, or we're not maybe read enough, or just our analyzing is off. You can't argue with the fruit, bro.
Right.
The fruit of the matter, the fruit of the matter
Yeah.
is that there's this gulf in between, folks who are leading. And listen, I hear you on your concerns about celebrity pastors. Like I hear folks on that, but realize that there's a context that creates these celebrity pastors. One of the contexts that create these celebrity pastors is that these young men don't have good relationship with older men who are using their life and experience and their kind of perspective in the season that the seasoning that they've gotten from their time in the word to shape them. They show genuine interest in them. They're pouring into them.
Right.
I think about men like Mark Dever, bro, who folks won't know this about. I'm sure people will know this, but Mark Dever isn't a internet personality.
No.
But Mark Dever's probably had more impact on churches around America than any celebrity pastor that you can think of. But what I've heard about Mark Dever is that he invests in young people. He brings them to their church. He lets them sit in on their elder meetings. They have a whole cohort. They have a whole program that you can live with them and see the life what's going on in the church behind closed doors. He brings them into the preaching so that when they go out, they are equipped.
Right.
And they're equipped by a monster of a theologian / pastor / father / husband.
Right.
That pipeline outside of you sitting and talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Just giving lectures to them, theologizing their existence, right? He gets on the ground with these folks,
right?
And I that's not ubiquitous. Right. That isn't widespread. That isn't a movement.
That's very true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm it's not biblical. Okay, can we say that? That it's not biblical to emphasize the authority that you are looking to give to young people in your church that have shown themselves to be faithful. Right. Now, I'm not talking about like 13 and 14-year-old new converts. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying by today's standards, Jesus was a youth pastor, okay? The man started his ministry at 30 years old.
Right.
He was his following was with young people. He came to this world through a young person. Think about the movements from SNCC and the civil rights movement. And when there's been mobility on the ground, even in women's suffrage, what is the age group of the people that are marching and protesting and gathering? It's young folks.
That's right.
And I just it's to me it feels like a kind of unfaithfulness. That we are not more integrated with the riches of those that have come before us and the energy of those that are ready to lead now. That pipeline is just it's not there, or it's rusted and broken, and you know. So that's something that we want to see change. I think another thing is that I absolutely think is generational is how we respond to misconduct in the church, bro. Sexual misconduct, abuse of power.
Abuse of power, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what are some of the ways that y'all have seen? Because I thoroughly believe, and again, you may argue with my assessment, but I can go to Julie Royce's Twitter right now.
Oh man, her whole website. All you gotta do is go to julieroyce.com.
15 examples.
Yep.
Of the abuse of power.
Yep.
And in different aspects.
Right.
I'm hearing this story too many times, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, have you read the reports that came out of the convention that I'm a part of?
Yeah.
Of these like massive like abuses of power and cover-ups of misconduct.
Yeah.
I'm also like, not millennials have their problems, and don't get me, I'm not trying to lionize or glorify being a millennial.
Right.
But one of the things that's perceived as a lack of submission to authority is that we refuse to live in hypocrisy.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
We would rather burn everything down than to be somewhere that's flourishing but rife with hypocrisy.
Right.
Don't say one thing to me and then get on stage and say the exact opposite thing to God's people.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What are some of the ways that y'all might have observed that kind of commitment to us shunning and running for hypocrisy? I think that's the blasphemy of our generation.
Yeah.
Is that you are doing one thing and saying something else. I mean, saying one thing and doing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that time and time again. I actually have a question and a thought to share.
Yeah.
I wonder, because even with millennials, something we struggle with is being transparent and vulnerable in leadership.
Yeah.
So where do I go with my mistakes? Where do I go with my weaknesses? Where do I go with my inconsistencies?
Yeah.
Because the generation above us, I don't know about you, but I've never seen my pastor confess sin.
Yeah.
I've never seen my pastor share weaknesses. So I grew up believing that my pastor is perfect.
Yep.
Here I am now in leadership, and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm not perfect, God can't use me.
Oh, we going somewhere. We going somewhere. I'm not sure where we going, but we going somewhere.
And so now I've got my temptations, and I don't have a safe space to go with these temptations.
You didn't have them.
Because I didn't have them. And then now, and I'm wondering, it's not just us. I wonder if that's generation above us as well. Maybe they're caught up in scandal because they didn't have a safe place to go. What if like we don't have a culture in the church that knows how to confess sin?
Right.
And then once the sin has been confessed, we don't know how to restore gently, as Galatians 6 talks about.
Absolutely.
And so it's safer for me to keep this a secret than bring it to the light.
Right.
Because if I bring it to the light, I'll be dealt with harshly.
Right.
And so I don't know, I struggle, and I wonder, do we have a problem in the church when it comes to, I mean, it's so funny because as you read Paul's letters, as you read the New Testament, time and time again, he shows us what to do when sin shows up.
Right.
Assuming that we shouldn't be surprised when sin shows up.
Right.
However, when sin shows up in our cultural context, we don't know what to, we hide it.
Yep.
Or we excommunicate.
Yep.
We don't know how to restore. We don't know what
PR first.
We think about PR.
Man, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
When somebody finds out.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you're right. I think that there is an issue with that, man, because if you are shaped in a culture in which you do not see your leader be vulnerable or confess
or apologize.
That's big.
Or apologize, man.
I haven't read any data on this, but it seems like that might be a generational stronghold too.
Yeah.
I don't know how many friends of mine that have talked about their fathers or people that have been authority over them and say, I don't care. I could bring in a law professor from Harvard to break down why this was a violation.
Yeah.
I could bring witnesses. I could bring video recordings. I could bring a prophecy from God.
Yep.
And they will say, man, well, I wish you didn't feel that way, but it'd be a cold day in hell before I apologize about this. Now, they wouldn't say that, but that's the reality.
That's the
you
reality.
never say, in fact, I've heard the opposite, that I hear what you're saying, but I did everything right.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is too personal.
Good. No, that's good.
Let it out.
No, I mean that's the. I think that's the beauty of the episode, because I think that this is personal for all of us, including folks that are listening. I think that not confessing sin, not being vulnerable, and not apologizing. I don't think that they understand how they are shaping the leaders under them.
Yes.
Because again, leaders shape a culture.
Right.
Church shape a culture.
Yeah.
The leaders in the church, the leaders and the church have this symbiotic relationship in which they are shaping culture together.
Wow.
And if you are shaping as the leader, no confession, no vulnerability, no apologies, deny. Sorry that you feel that way. Cannot be taught either as a leader. Cannot be counseled as the leader, because I'm the counselor. I'm the teacher. Can't be wrong as the leader. Because then that undermines people's confidence in my me being a sage, which you're not, honestly. Then that is a culture that we are forming in the church to see our leaders that way. Then the church buttresses that culture in the leaders being that way, and then we create more leaders that are that way.
Yes, bro. Yes,
and nothing changes.
Yes, it
and
doesn't.
then when you have somebody that stands up and says, "Hey, I don't think that leadership should look like this. I think that there are some problems." They get shunned.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because now they're a threat. You know.
Right.
And so I think that is a problem. I think that that also could be an issue with some of the hypocrisy we see. Like you said, man, I think that there are some cats that are like, "Hey, man, there is no grace for me if I confess this mug. There is
that's
no
the big one, bro.
Yeah, it's if I confess this mug, you might as well put my head in the guillotine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And the thing is too, because if you don't confess, if you do not confess your sin, the Bible promises you won't be healed.
Right.
Yeah,
It
that's
promises
exactly
you.
what. Yeah, that's exactly.
If you scoff at confession, if you think that everybody else needs to be honest about how they're struggling except you, the Bible promises you you will not be healed.
That is true.
Now, just because you confess doesn't equal that you are healed.
Exactly.
That's good.
But just
But you
know
won't have healing without confession.
you don't
though.
even have access to it
Right.
if you're not confessing.
Yes, absolutely.
But the problem is, if I choose to internalize my shame, internalize my guilt, it leads me to the Pharisee.
Wow.
Right? So, and then guilt is compound. Shame is compound.
Right.
Shame also begats more shame. It continues to morph and grow into a stronghold, right?
Yeah.
And something that could have been a struggle that you could have confessed.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I obviously can't get into details. I have had multiple occasions in my life where I saw the seeds of something. If I'm lying, I'm flying.
No.
Ask ask Wes, ask Malachi.
And I can tell you
Ask
what
Nameless.
I can tell you
ask
what,
Trip Lee.
I can tell you what KB has done too. He doesn't have to tell you.
Yeah.
If you're talking about it, you have had times in your life where you saw seeds of something that could grow into something very sinister.
Yes.
And bad.
Yes.
One of the things that I have seen you one of the things that I have seen you show an example of in regards to that is that you usually get ahead of it by calling. There have been times that KB has called the brothers together and said, "I need us to have a meeting after church." He'll text all of us, "We need to have a meeting after church," or "We need to have a meeting at this time." And we'll come to a meeting and KB will confess the seeds of what he sees so that it doesn't grow into something.
Yes.
So it doesn't grow into a plant with teeth and a mouth and vines.
Yes.
That will
devours
put you in
my
the-
life and my family.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
But I think that's what, is that where you were getting at?
That's exactly where I was going.
I've seen you do, which has been an example for me, is that he will try to get ahead of it as much as he can and says, it ain't even here yet.
Yes.
You know
But
what I'm
I
saying?
feel it.
It's like when you about to get sick and you feel that little tickle in your throat. That's how he is. He's like, if I feel a tickle of something that could develop into the flu,
Yes, bro.
I am bringing y'all together and say, I'm sick.
Yes, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
So,
to Ebenezer's point, like I I know I'm here right now because I've been able to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried that they're gonna go home and gossip to their wives about it, and their wives are then gonna look at me weird, or I know they're not going to then somehow not want me around anymore, or say, man, we thought that he was the man. Well, not the man, but we thought he was a man of God, and obviously he's not. Because obviously we're very good at looking at other people's sin. Yeah. Because we're not, but we live our lives. Our brain ignores whole parts of our body so that we're not distracted all day.
True.
Like I gotta look past my nose to see you. I have to. Sometimes you'll smell funny, and your brain will say, "Don't worry about it. We got to focus on X, Y, and Z.
You got to get work done today."
But I can smell you.
Right.
And I can see your face. We're much better at observing the problems with other people than we are our own selves. This is why we need mirrors. Really and if I cannot look in the mirror, notice something, and then go to those who would be equivalent to the physician or the dermatologist or the professional, which I am saying is my brothers, right? Is my elders, right? If I can't go to them and get help, imagine if every time you went to the doctor with a problem, you had to gear up for it to be a conversation like that one dude, that one doctor that's on my 500-pound life. I can't remember the joint on TLC.
Oh, man. He said the reason that you're not losing any weight is because you're eating 80 hamburgers a day.
Yeah, you're fat.
You're fat.
And that's
that guy,
what it is.
I know exactly what you're
Imagine
talking
if all conversations were like that.
Oh, it would be terrible.
You go in and like,
you
hey,
wouldn't go to your doctor.
I'm having some blood pressure issues. Oh, really? Really? Okay, some blood pressure issues. When's the last time you jogged? Oh, you haven't jogged. You don't jog. Okay, good. I can see where this is coming from. I want my doctor to talk to me about that, but I want him to talk to me about it in a way that is empowering and gently, where we feel like equals.
Man.
I know.
But it's funny that you say that, because what does happen on my 800-pound life is that when folks do go to him, they start covering up what they've actually been doing or not doing.
And then they start doing it more.
Lying.
Bro,
they start saying, oh, gee, how much did you eat? Oh, I think I had a hamburger. And then yesterday he'll be like, "You didn't have a hamburger yesterday." I can tell. But they're lying because they know he's going to shame them.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So they start.
It's how I feel when I go to the dentist, bro.
You got to get ahead of it. Hey man, I ain't been flossing like
I just and the dentist is like, "Yo, calm down, bro."
My dentist is like that.
I'm on your team.
My dentist literally told me one day, because you've been going through so much, I'm actually not going to tell you all of the things I think you need to clean. No, she said, I'm not going to get on you about you not flossing because I know that you know that. I'm just going to clean your teeth and tell you to just, do what you were doing before.
Which she still in a roundabout way says you need to floss.
Yes.
And so we're not saying don't tell people the truth.
Exactly.
We're just saying truth does not have to ever be brutal.
Yes.
Right. You don't have to be brutally honest.
Yes.
Honesty hurts by itself.
The truth hurts, bro.
I got to the dentist already insecure.
Bro, I was hurt before I got there,
I was already struggling before I walked in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But so anyways, all that to say, I am grateful that I have a space, because this is the point I want to make. What Ebenezer is saying is so freaking insightful right now, because perfect spiritual leaders is almost the backbone of the American church. Right. Let me tell you. Let me explain myself. I had a brother over my house the other day, and I was talking to him about my love for Charles Spurgeon. Named one of my sons after him. I have an OG manuscript from Charles Spurgeon in his handwriting, right? Like I took him to my library, and I was showing him like, yo, this mug is crazy, right? Yeah. And I was like, man, one thing I like about Spurgeon is that you can't make that he was a man of his day argument, right? Like, I know that he was owning slaves and beating them from time to time and empowering other people that were doing the same, but he was a man of his time.
Right.
You can't make that about Spurgeon. No. That's a terrible argument, by the way. But Spurgeon was a man of his time, and he said slavery was evil and wrong, among all kind of other things. And I said, and he finished well. He had a hard life. People don't know that his wife.
He had a really hard life.
I mean, his wife was bedridden for like majority of her adult life. I mean, he had extreme pain. He battled with depression.
He had gout.
He had gout, but he finished well.
Yeah.
And I said, man, I can't say that about a lot of dudes, man. A lot of dudes started very, very well, and we're reading the books from when they were.
Man, that's crazy.
We read the books from the season what they were doing well, and we forget about the parable of the sower. That one of the grounds that the seed was thrown upon, the context was that the seed or the gospel was received with joy for a period of time. So for that period of time where the gospel received with joy, you can start writing songs. John Lynn was talking about this.
Yes.
Write books. You can do theology, start seminary and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then things start get challenging.
That's it.
Cares of this world and the
cares of the world get
deceitfulness of
wiped away.
riches.
Anyways, I said it to my friend, and he was like, "Yeah, I hear you. I know a lot of dudes don't finish well, but and I hear you when you say everybody's good, everybody has bad in them." He said, but not. He pointed to a pastor that we both knew. He said, but not him. I kid you not. This brother said he is perfect. That's what he said.
No way.
And when I heard it, I was so shocked by it, I couldn't really respond. So I was just like, all right, brother. Hey, man, hey, how about them Eagles? You know what I'm saying? Because what I wasn't mad at him or faulting him,
right?
Because I know that this is the context in which many churches exist.
Yes.
We are showing up to hear from him, and sometimes her, because we believe that they have a spiritual level, access, spiritual existence that far succeeds ours. That when they're telling us how not to be angry, how to be faithful to our wives, how to raise godly children, how to humble ourselves, how to forgive, they're telling us all those things because they already have mastered them. So when we find out, which you will, that they have not mastered them, and that they are struggling just like you. I can almost remember where I was sitting when I had a realization like that with a particular person that I had a particular spiritual leader I had put on a pedestal in my mind. I remember like the world shook. It was cognitive dissonance where I was unsettled and I said, oh my gosh, this person is doing the very thing that I'm tempted to do or that I have done before. This person is doing the very thing that I accuse my enemies of doing. He's doing it or she's doing it. And I remember not knowing how to make sense of that because in my mind, a part of this contract, this kind of invisible spiritual contract that I have with the church or with this spiritual leader is that you may say to some degree, you know,
I struggle.
You know, I'm still human. Don't get it. But that ain't really the vibe, though. The vibe is largely, you figured it out and you're trying to help us do the same.
You know what I think it is, too? I think that in American Christianity, we've mistaken giftedness and Bible knowledge as spiritual maturity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But Jesus says, if you love me, you will obey. So God's love language is obedience. And I think like today, I think the American school system has messed us up because if you can regurgitate or repeat or reiterate what the teacher says, you get an A. So the teacher says 2 + 2 is 4. You show up to test day, you see 2 + 2. Oh, he said 4, let me put down a 4. But Jesus doesn't pass you because you repeat what he says. He passes you when you live like he lives. Right? And I think a lot of the times we can hide in our sin, we can hide in our mess because we say the right things and we're gifted. And so I don't know, like I get confused sometimes because how do you attribute someone's perfection to their knowledge? Right? Like, how do you know that this person is actually following Jesus because they can tell you about Jesus? I know atheists who know the word better than a lot of Christians.
Very true. Go on TikTok.
Oh, that's true.
Dude's got full accounts. Don't know God, don't want to know God. And
not at all.
Got the whole Bible active for it.
From Genesis to Revelation. And so how do we test fruit? Like, because fruit is not knowledge, it's patience, it's gentleness, it's kindness. And so I think like we have to get back to God's original plan and live in community and assess fruit up close and personal. And I think that as long as we're attributing somebody's maturity to their knowledge, we'll let them hide in secret. And we'll let them live a duplicit lifestyle. But what I want to ask too is because when you have seeds of whatever the monster is, you confess that. What about this friend group allowed you to be free enough to express that? Because there might be somebody listening, or I'm thinking even for myself, when I have seeds, do I have somebody that I can call and say, hey, I'm not there yet, but I could see how this can get there.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy, especially as leaders, podcasters, pastors, to just hide behind the Greek and the Hebrew.
Right. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this has to do with this perfection conversation, bro. I cannot stress them enough, bro. When we see the pastor or the spiritual leader or spiritual influencer fall, right? When it comes out that they were doing all kinds of stuff, right? We don't appreciate that for some of them, they were doing all of that stuff while you were lapping up their sermons.
Yeah, absolutely.
While you were reading their books, while you were listening to them at the conference, they were leaving the conference and going to wherever else to do that thing. That there's often this disconnect, and it's devastating for us because we are prone to gravitate towards that which seems to approximate perfection.
Right.
That's so like we do that with beauty, right? Like you know, there's a reason why a lot of times these celebrity influencers look a certain way. Their wives look a certain way. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They dress a certain way.
Yeah.
It's a part of what brings us. It's unnamed. Nobody's gonna say this, but it isn't a coincidence that you used to play in the NFL and you got these tight shirts on stage when and then your bicep is bursting out as you making points. You know what I'm saying? All of that. I don't think that it's like it's in the staff meeting,
right? But
it flows out of what you kind of know people want.
Right.
They want to be next to things that approximate perfection.
Yeah,
right.
That's good.
And what leaders don't do, and this is why when they fall, they will say something that's very true. Y'all wanted me to give y'all grace, but now I've fallen, y'all don't want to give me grace. That's a problem. However, we have, as leaders, create the context where we behave as if we never needed grace.
Right.
True.
That's good. That's
so we didn't find any when we needed it because we convinced our people by our lives.
That's so good.
By how we carry ourselves, how we structured this church.
Right.
Yeah.
In a way that we never needed grace. It's you that needs grace.
Right. Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, we didn't plan it this way. And let me just be the first to say, we have failed, especially in our early 20s, bro.
Yeah.
We failed miserably in taking care of the fallen, bro. Miserably. I have a list of about 3 things in my life. I say 4. 4 things in my life that are like my regret list. And I'm trying to keep that list short.
Yeah.
One of the pieces on that list is how I was friends to wounded people around me, bro, in my early 20s, bro. Abysmal, bro. I thought that what I was doing was spiritual and godly. I thought I was standing on righteousness and even the stuff about when I got married, bro, I was told, I was discipled to essentially, forsake all others, right? You're married now.
Yeah.
No one else matters.
Yeah.
Is that really biblical? That now that you're married, your neighbors don't matter anymore? The people that you're in community with, they might have a need. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
I'm married now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, I know that can be taken too far. Take that advice as a grain of salt. I can unpack that, but it's not the conversation. But the point is, I was discipled very rigidly, and there wasn't this space for loving the fallen or mending the wounded. I didn't know what to do, bro.
Yeah.
So I have to confess that. But over the years, bro, God, through the HGA community and the Tampa City, the Christians in the city, taught us you can either be impressive or you can be known.
Yeah.
And once we all said, everyone sucks.
For real.
Everyone.
We all suck.
Yeah.
We all suck. Even when you start thinking about it, bro.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a flawed man, and I don't mean that theoretically, right? That's not just the thing you say. It's not a political statement. I am a flawed man.
Yeah.
I have been with my wife for 15 years now. I have never cheated on her. I've never even gotten close to cheating on her. Shout out to all my female fans out there, I have never had a fan try me. Not on DM, not at a concert. Ain't nobody knocked on my tour bus in the middle of the night. Ain't nobody knocked on my room door. None of that. I by God's grace,
Praise God.
I wasn't having any opportunities.
Right.
And then I've put some structures in place to
For
prevent
sure.
if stuff were to happen.
Right.
But the studies show that oftentimes women will cheat on their spouses out of unhappiness in their marriage, discontentment in their marriage. But men, they'll cheat on their spouses
Just because it's Tuesday.
because it's Tuesday. They can have happy marriages. Kids love them, adore them. Things are going fine, but it's an opportunity.
Right.
And then something will click in their mind. And I think about a part of my faithfulness is that I have never even been close to an opportunity where I had to be tempted. I mean, I had to stand for the right thing.
Right.
I don't come from a home. My mom sheltered me from many things that my cousins didn't get sheltered from. There are all kinds of things that I wasn't. I don't have an extensive past of abuse. I don't have there are my social location, how my life developed also speaks into the things that I do struggle with and that I don't struggle with. That's also grace. I still can't boast that I might not be struggling the same way that you struggle because it wasn't because I was so genius and so spiritual and God loves me so much. He's given me so much favor that I'm the Bible college boy, faithful to his wife. You know what I'm saying? I can't boast.
That's good.
Because you're saying that there's things in your life that have been structured in a way in which you may not. I love that you said that. We don't talk about that a lot.
Yes.
I know that this is probably a little rabbit trail, but we don't talk about that a lot. We don't talk about the fact that the reason why some of you may not be struggling with certain things is because by God's grace, the way that your life has been structured, the kind of experiences that you have, and the social location that you find yourself in, put you in a place where it's just not a struggle for you, but it's a struggle for somebody else. And here you are thinking that I don't struggle with whatever it may be, but all of these other brothers do.
Right.
Well, you don't struggle with these things because of the way that your life was situated. You weren't put in a position where later on you would. You know what I'm saying? It's not because you're so much holier than them or you have so much more self-control than them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so it's almost like somebody saying, man, I've never even had the opportunity to make money illegally. Right? And then you're talking to a whole bunch of people that have, and some of them have done it.
And then,
you're
I
looking
have
at
a brother
yourself-
that's been tempted many times to go back to the street. And I can respond to that like, man, why would you? Are you stupid? You want to get shot? You want to go to jail?
It's like you don't understand. Like it's almost like me trying to talk to, I don't know, like a Crip from Compton that left the gang. And he's struggling with going back to gangbanging at times, or somebody disrespected him and he want to go back to his ways. And I'm looking at him like, how could you?
Don't you realize?
Why don't you that? Like you said, don't you realize you would die in the streets, or don't you realize? And you're like, bro, first of all, my mom was a gang member. My dad was a gang member. My uncles and my cousins were gang members. I was raised by gang members.
They're still gang members.
They're still
when
gang
I go
members.
To Thanksgiving, gang members that will
are
have
going to be
made the
at
food.
Thanksgiving. Everybody's going to be there with a blue flag. The turkey's going to have a blue flag on it. The turkey is going to be wearing a blue bandana, bro.
And this is not to say that gang banging is somehow acceptable.
No,
it's
not just saying that.
Understand that the temptation
It's
is probably going to
different.
be different for
I'm
you
not
because you
gonna
grew
be
up in
tempted to be
Idaho
a
around
Crip.
potatoes.
I'm not going to be tempted to be a Crip. I was raised in St. Petersburg, Florida, which it was rough, but we didn't have gang banging gangs. Everybody
that's right.
did about neighborhoods. So of course, I am not going to have the same temptation as you, Mr. Crip from Compton, to go back to cripping because I have never come from that context, bro. So I think it's not because I'm so holy I don't want to gangbang. It's that I haven't come from. I wasn't raised in that context. I think it's the same thing that happens with certain sins.
That's so good.
You have certain people around you that struggle with certain things because of things that have happened in their life. It doesn't excuse their sin, but it does make it more of a temptation for them than it is for you.
That's right.
And it's not that it's not a temptation for you because you are somehow just so holy.
This is not an argument for justification. No. It is an argument for grace. Humility. Patience.
Man.
Maybe don't, bro. There
good.
is somebody I know, bro. This brother, he dropped the ball in ministry. Like he failed.
Mm-hmm.
He did. There's no way
around it.
But what he did should not have ended his life. He made made some poor decisions. And I remember very distinctly, as a young man being discipled, that I was told that sin in the life of the pastorate is like a balloon that's being blown up. Mm. The moment it is popped, there is never any hope of putting that balloon back together. Mm. It's
over.
Yeah. Now, I am a absolute stickler for high integrity in leadership. High character is always going to be destiny, right? However, redemption must have some role in this conversation.
Right.
We have to ask, how can we make sure that not only God's people are protected from the lack of integrity, but how do we take the person who has had a lapse of integrity or fallen, assess where they are? Don't treat every failure of righteousness like Jeffrey Dahmer, bro.
Yeah.
How are we able to still have redemptive plans? Maybe it's a 5-year plan. Nobody should make it, and this is what we see happening a lot in certain sects of Christianity, where people and the brother that I'm talking about did not cheat on his wife in the ways that you were, and what we see.
Yeah.
No. The issue actually was not adultery.
Yeah.
It was another issue that was bad. But he also was told it was beyond redemption. And that sent a signal to not just other leaders that are in the church, but it sends a message to us.
That's right.
Because if I mess up, or if I am struggling, which really goes back to the point that we're trying to make here and to answer the question from earlier, is that if all we say is that your Christian life is a bubble, it is a balloon, and once it is popped, it is over, you should not be surprised that when people make mistakes, that they sink in despondency, guilt, despair, and then they either walk away from Jesus, or they dig down in their sin, or they continue to get good at faking.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
If redemption is not even an option,
right.
then what am I left with?
Right.
Are we afraid that we're going to incentivize people to commit sin because they know that they might be forgiven? Newsflash, brothers and sisters. People are still falling, and they know they can't be forgiven.
That's true. That's a fact. We're already working with folks believing that things are beyond redemption, and cats are still messing
That's
it
right.
up.
Yeah.
So what I'm more afraid of is people getting good at faking, which is what bro. I was thinking about this, bro. This is controversial. Don't make a clip out of this. I was thinking about this on the way to the office today, bro. Someday, I bet, someone's gonna do a documentary on the Christian entertainment industry. Brother, sisters, there are a lot of folks that are serious about the kingdom of God, that are really trying to be faithful to God, like a lot. And I would stand on this too. I've heard people say that the Christian industry is just as bad as the secular industry. That is a lie. That is a lie. Secular industry
is way worse.
Way worse.
I hope there ain't no Diddy parties in the Christian industry.
No. Not that I know.
Hey man, hey man, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
After this CCM party tonight, y'all may want to get out of here around 3:00, man. That Carrie Job goes off and something else comes on.
Oh man,
I'm just joking.
But bro, there is a lot though of faking, bro.
Oh
and I don't know what my role. I confront that stuff when I'm in it.
Yeah.
I haven't felt like God has called me to go on an expose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Turn into a whistleblower.
Turn to Mr. Whistleblower. I am involved with a lot of other things to be worried about that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just belies the fact that when that documentary comes out, some cat's gonna be nervous, bro. Because it's just going to reaffirm what we already know to be true. We are creating a context, and it starts in our local churches.
Yeah, that's right.
They say that what happens in the classroom then ends up in the pulpit. That's what I heard all through Bible college.
Yeah.
So we fight for truth in the classroom, that we are precise theologically, that we know what the arguments are because we're going to get sent out of here into churches.
Yeah.
I would like to believe that what happens in the local church, right, is actually what shapes who Christians are in the culture.
Yeah.
And if in the local church, it's a place where we don't even see this as a top tier issue, that people are getting good at faking, so much so that when we arrive to the local assembly, it's second nature to put on your I'm with other Christians gathering mask, and you start talking in ways you normally don't talk.
Yeah.
You begin behaving even with the songs that are being sang in ways that are inconsistent with what's actually going on in your heart. That you're repeating these words, but your heart's far from you. Or you lie about how bad you are struggling and how the world is falling all down around you, but service is going to be over in an hour, and then we're all leaving for lunch, and that's going to be the last time I see y'all for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Fam.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like,
It's good.
I am grateful that my community with my brothers and sisters has not been that.
Yeah.
I've been able to be a sinner, and that has made place for Jesus to be a savior. And that this is not an endorsement of disobedience. It is an endorsement of reality.
That's right.
Sin, I am dead to sin, but sin is still alive.
Yeah.
That affects me in ways that might not even be perceptible to me. I need God's people. And I don't want to sit down with a group of people and start having conversations about reform. But before we can get into that, we got to talk about this, and we got to talk about, you sound a little liberal. Are you a Democrat? No, I'm not a liberal Democrat. I'm not a liberal. Oh, okay. Well, what about critical race theory? Who are you reading? Have you heard of Thomas Sowell? Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to have all of these, all of these all these landmines I'm having to. I don't want nobody to feel weird. What do you mean by black people? What do you mean by white? Sometimes I just want to just talk about how my kids can live in a world where they're not threatened. I don't want to go through all of the other stuff.
That's right.
And that's what it feels like in discipleship groups. If I got to come tiptoeing around and say, well, listen, I made a mistake. But it was the first time I did it in 2 weeks. And let me just tell you this too. This is not something I think is a real problem, or this is something I struggled with a year ago, but I'm not. That's what it feels like. And I'm like, I don't even like having conversations with dudes like that, bro. I'm like, man, come back to me when you just want to just talk and we just get to the Holy Spirit and we get to Jesus, bro. Because I don't want to be, stop qualifying every single thing, bro.
Right. That reminds me of 1 John chapter 1. Where he says, if we claim to be without sin, we deceived ourselves and the truth is not in us. And then it goes on in verse 10, if we claim we have not sinned, we make him out to be a liar, talking about God, and his word is not in us. And so the Bible says, if you're trying to act like you don't struggle, you're a liar. And you make God out to be a liar. And it's just like, why can't we just acknowledge that we're all sinful and we need help? And we're all in this together. And we all need each other to walk in victory.
Absolutely, bro. That's right on, man.
Yeah, we need it.
Can you land this plane in talking about how friendship is kind of the context? And there are people out there that are like, okay, well, I don't have that. How do I lean into it? How do I start it? Maybe even speak about walking in the light, I mean.
Yes, that's what I wanted to, that's actually what I wanted to speak about.
Yeah.
I think one of the ways, I think, Ebenezer, you asked a question earlier where you said, and I think KB answered it brilliantly, when you were asking about how he got to this point where he had this kind of community where he can like confess the seeds, right? I think one of the things is learning from other leaders who have set that example. One leader that I think that we've learned from is Ray Ortlund, who has this thing called Walking in the Light. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Some of our real faithful members maybe remembering it, or may remember it. But we have this thing called Walking in the Light, in which, number one, we are coming to the table believing that all of us are sinners. And as KB said before, there's a question that we want to ask ourselves. do you want to be impressive, which means do you want to look like to all of your Christian friends that are around you that you are just killing it?
Yes.
In your Christianity.
I am him.
Right.
I am Himothy. If I had a book in the Bible, it would be called Himothy. First Himothy. Third Himothy. Do you want to be impressive or do you want to be known? Right? So I could tuck away who I really am, my struggles, in order to put on a mask to seem impressive to everybody else, but you don't really know the real me because I'm not confessing to you my sins.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm confessing to you a sanitized version of my sins.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, like, man, last week, man, I just need to pray more, man. Just tell me to pray more. And then behind closed scenes, you've been yelling at your wife, kicking the dog,
Yeah.
slapping the baby. You know what I'm saying? Well,
holes
maybe
in
if
the
you did, I
drywall
don't
all
want to
over
say
the
that. You
crib.
might need to go to jail if you slapping the baby. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's holes in the drywall.
You slap the baby,
You know.
you go to jail.
You
confess
going to
that
jail?
baby.
Yeah. If you slapping the baby, don't tell me that because you going to jail.
Police.
At first we're gonna pray, and I'm
Jesus
calling
will forgive
CBS.
you in jail.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think I think of the fact that we can put on masks and we can say that we're killing it, or you can be known and say, you know what, I don't care if I look impressive
Right.
because I want to be loved and known and accepted for who I am, and that comes by me confessing my sins, and not only that, I want God to know me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
That's
what
so
we
good.
have endeavored as like in our little small group of our brothers is to say, we're not trying to be impressive with one another. We know, like KB says, everyone sucks. All of us here suck. We're not trying to impress one another. We're trying to be known by God and known by one another.
Right,
and we're
right.
trying to get free.
Yes.
We're trying to get strong.
Yeah.
We're trying to get help. We're
Yeah.
trying to get healing.
Yeah.
And so, based upon what the Bible says about confessing your sin, walking in the light, confessing your sin,
Yep.
we have a time called walking in the light. Now we used to have it as like a structured time, but now we just kind of live it. I guess I could say,
Yep.
where we come to one another and we confess our sins, and we're not trying to be impressive when we confess them. We're just saying, this is what it is, bro.
Yep.
Right.
And we make an endeavor that we're not going to counsel each other.
Yeah, you can't be like, you need to read this book.
Yeah, that's not how the response of it is prayer.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
That's so good.
Not counseling.
Yeah.
Nah, what did you think about maybe?
Yeah.
It's prayer.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I think that that's
That's
part
good.
of what we have practiced. And it was like an intentional practice that has now just turned into culture.
Right.
I would say
That's the
within
word.
the group of brothers that we have, which
Yeah.
is how you kind of can create a culture.
Yeah.
So walking in the light is very important for us. And I think that is part of what we have established here in wanting to be fully loved, fully known, fully accepted, because that's what everyone really wants. We want to be fully loved,
Yeah.
loved for who we are, not who we pretend to be with the
Right,
mask on,
right.
fully known for who we are. Well, we can't be fully loved for who we are if we're not fully
Right,
known for who we
right,
are.
right,
So I
right.
want to be fully known. I want you to know who I really am without the mask.
Yeah.
Then I want to be fully loved for who I am.
Yeah.
Despite all of my insecurities,
That's good.
the scars on my face behind the mask, the busted lip, whatever, you still love me.
Yeah.
And then fully accept it,
Yeah.
that you accept me. That is what God does for us when we confess our sins. But we want to get that into the ethos of the church for that so that becomes what we do for one another.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so one of the things that we do is we practice that, but practicing that takes vulnerability.
Yeah,
And
boy.
it takes risk.
That's it right there.
You are taking a risk
Yes.
when you are being vulnerable with someone.
Yes.
And if you're not willing to take a risk, then you're not going to have vulnerability.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
If you're going to stay guarded, and there's good reason that some people stay guarded. Some people have taken a risk with their vulnerability and have been stabbed in the back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm not saying that you want to be all willy-nilly with your vulnerability. You
Right,
want to be
sure.
cautious, right? You want to understand if you can trust somebody. It's like all of the, you see the test that Joseph gave his brothers before he kind of just welcomed them back in.
Yeah.
He put them through all kind of tests to know if I can
love
really
that.
trust that y'all are changed or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not just going to welcome y'all in because y'all are my kin.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? After what y'all did to me. So
Yeah.
I think that there is biblical precedent to make sure that these people are trustworthy.
Yeah.
But I think friendship, I think for us, starts by being vulnerable with one another. And I think that someone is going to have to take the leap of faith of vulnerability. And I also, if no one is willing to take the leap of faith of vulnerability, then it's not going to happen. Your friendships are only going to be as deep as you're willing to be deep.
That's good.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
good. Yeah.
And so if you're going to stay surface with your friendships are going to stay surface.
Right.
Just the long and short of it.
Right.
But if you want to get deep, then your friendships can go deep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes what people need is to see that other people go deep. If we all come here and we say, man, we all suck, man.
Yeah.
I get around my brothers and I don't have to be impressive around them because they ain't being impressive around me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But somebody has to set the precedent for
Straight
it.
up,
That's
straight
right.
up.
Somebody has to set the tone, bro. Somebody has to step up and say, I suck.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that there's a powerful story that KB told about when Ray Ortlund did that in front of a whole bunch of leaders. But Ray Ortlund set the tone.
He did, bro.
When he got up in front of all of those leaders and said, I'm going to confess to you some
And
dark
he took
stuff.
a minute to think about it.
Yeah, he probably
It was
was
a
like,
men's
shit,
group.
am I going to do
That
this?
should, it was a men's group. It was,
Yep.
it was good as a men's group.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
brother was like, he paused for a second and he looked at all of us. This is my first time to the men's group. Like, how do you know that I might not?
Go tell your business.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that brother was like, this is what I've been struggling for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Will you all pray for me?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, my goodness, is this not Christianity, bro?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this not what our hearts are longing for? The
Longing
truth of the
for.
matter is, what we're afraid of is we don't want to okay sin, and I think that's a good reflex, and we don't want to make it seem like sin is benign and we all do it, so don't worry about it. But I think an effort to not to try to keep people from feeling like they can sin with impunity.
Right.
We don't obey the Bible, dog.
Yeah.
Like the Bible talks about grace in scandalous ways.
Right.
It talks about our need for repentance and forgiveness and confession in ways that disrupt these perfect images that we try to sort of project for one another.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think, but at the end of the day, sin is an oppressive reality. We want to be out of our sin. You don't want to be gripped by your anger. You don't want to be gripped by your lust. You want to be gripped by your pride. You don't want to be gripped by your fear and your doubt.
Yeah.
Right.
This monk isn't helping us.
Right.
We're not flourishing.
Yeah.
Sin, if you let it, it
Yeah.
makes me think about Sun Tzu again in The Art of War. He says, don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Your enemy is your sin, and just look at what it's doing to you.
Yeah.
It is constantly destroying you.
Right.
If you just listen to it, just or at least observe what you feel after the high is over, and what the high actually did to your life and your family and your soul.
Right.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
What is it doing?
Right.
It is showing you that it's bad.
Yeah.
Sin is deceptive because it's so blatantly in your face. It hides your destruction in plain sight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me, I had a conversation with a college friend, and his brother committed adultery.
Yeah.
And his brother's wife wanted a divorce. And so as they were figuring through that situation, his brother moved in with him. And one day they went grocery shopping, and as they were walking down the aisle, my friend looked to his brother and said, "Look at aisle 6. Doesn't she look? She looks bad, doesn't she? She's really pretty." And his brother flipped out on him, and he was like, "Don't ever say that to me. Don't you know that's what cost me my marriage?" It was one innocent look that wasn't so innocent, and one look turned into gazing, and gazing turned into conversation, and conversation turned in, and so my friend was telling me like, "Yo, we've got to be on guard over even the little things, because when this thing gives birth, as we were talking about earlier, you might lose the very thing you love."
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Yes, bro.
Yeah, that's true.
That what an excellent analogy. What an excellent story.
Yeah.
That capitalizes that point.
Yeah.
Sin actually is it has a terrible PR kind of history.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It snitches on itself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just
It's true.
I'm grateful for you, brothers, and may God give our audience both this episode will be both on Shaping the Culture and on Southside Rabbi. I think And may God help those that follow us.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
To cultivate this, where
Friendship.
there is a space where Jesus can be the brilliant one,
Right.
and you can be the one that needs him.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, I get it. Vulnerability is difficult.
Yeah.
Every time we have had those meetings, I walked away feeling a sense of shame and disappointment.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, man, like, you should be better than this.
Right,
But
right.
I'm not.
But that's true. I mean, it's good to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Not
the
yet.
question is the fact is I'm not.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this.
So I need to keep doing this.
Yes, I think that what we need is intimacy, man,
Yeah.
with our friends, man,
Yeah,
intimacy
yeah.
with God and intimacy with one another.
Right.
And I think that like in the Western world, we've collapsed intimacy and sex together. Like we've used them interchangeably.
Yeah.
Right.
But they are not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
There are
Right.
people that can have sex without intimacy.
Right.
And I think that we have to have these kind of intimate friendships, man, that allow us vulnerability. That's what intimacy is.
Right.
Is that it allows this kind of vulnerability that
Yeah,
we
it's
have,
not
right?
like erotic.
It's not exactly. But in
Yeah.
the West, we've
Yeah.
made it homoerotic, right?
Yeah.
Like I think, like when you think about friendship, you think about again. We've used this before in the podcast when we talk about Jonathan and David's friendship.
Right,
And then you have David saying to Jonathan, like, you know, like when he's mourning over his brother Jonathan, when they have to go separate ways, and he says, like, your love for me has surpassed the love of women, is what what David says about Jonathan.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have so many people that tried to make that passage because of what I just said. They tried to make it seem like Jonathan and David were homosexual.
Like, hey, yo.
Right, yeah, cats are reading that joke and be like, hey, yo,
pause.
you know, hey,
Pause.
you know. I mean, but I think that it's because we don't have a proper understanding of true friendship intimacy, especially men.
Yeah.
Don't have a good understanding for
That's it
intimacy
right there.
between one another.
Yeah.
And David even shows a little bit of that there, because the fact that David says to Jonathan that your love for me has surpassed the love of women, when David has several wives and concubines, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That seems to allude to the fact that there's a kind of intimacy that he was getting from Jonathan that he wasn't getting from all of these wives and women that he had involved in his life.
Right.
Right? And so I think that we conflate the two a lot. And I think that sometimes even our lack of intimacy in one's life, even in friendship, causes folks to find intimacy in illicit places.
Right. That's good.
Where it's not intimacy, it just feigns as intimacy.
Right.
But it's not really intimacy though.
Yeah.
So now you're looking to get what you're really, it's like there's a great book on porn addiction called Surfing for God. And what in the books he's saying that you're really on the internet not surfing for porn, you're surfing for God. You're surfing for what God can give you, but you're finding it in pornography. But I think it's the same thing with certain types of intimacy. You can have a lack of intimacy or friendships in your life, and then now you're finding you're getting these into these illicit acts of intimacy that are not intimacy at all, but you're looking for
because you're actually desperate for
intimacy, bro.
Yeah,
And I think that with that is that again we've conflated the two with sex. We can live without sex because Jesus lived without sex, but we can't live without intimacy, bro. That's why God says it's not good for man to be alone.
Man, think about Jesus appearing weak in front of the disciples.
Which he did. Which he did. Jesus literally takes a small circle of the inner circle of disciples.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, I want y'all to wait here while I go pray.
Yeah.
And then he starts sweating blood. And then there's one passage in the Gospels, he literally, before he starts praying, he turns to the disciples that he brought with him and says, my soul is in great distress.
Yes, unto death.
Unto death.
Yeah, it hurts so bad I could die.
Yeah.
So
And then he
here's
starts
Jesus.
crying.
Here's Jesus telling his disciples, I'm in distress. I'm stressed.
Yeah.
I am in distress until I feel like I'm gonna die. My soul is in so much distress, I feel like I'm gonna die. And then he shows the disciples what he does with that distress, though. He takes it before the Lord. But the fact of the matter is, Jesus was vulnerable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
With his inner circle of friends.
Yeah.
So how do we think that we're gonna be able, if he's the prime example for us, right? And he was vulnerable with his inner circle about what was going on in here. How do we think that we are going to survive the Christian life without doing the same, bro? We can't.
Yeah.
And I think that is why that kind of confession is important. And I think what you'll find is a lot of the pastors that get caught in scandal, abuses of power, don't have that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They don't have it.
Yeah.
And maybe if they did, they wouldn't have ended up where they were.
Yep.
You know
I
what I'm
agree.
saying?
Yep.
Because of what you said. And what you said is that we've created this culture in which you're the guy.
Yeah.
Who do you go to?
Yeah. God.
Right? God is my accountability partner.
The only one above me.
And so I'm your accountability partner, but God is mine.
Yeah.
So I think that, that the intimacy is something that we need. We can't thrive without it. God has designed for us to be in these intimate relationships with one another, and that does not come without confession. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And you think about, if you do think about intimacy in a marriage, it's not just sex, it's relational.
Right.
And part of the intimacy, I think, is y'all could be vulnerable around one another. Like you spouses could say, man, my wife has seen me at my lowest and at my worst, and when I'm acting a fool and scared and whatever, and I've seen her at her worst, but that's part of intimacy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's our friend Keith Kiesler says we get soul naked in front of one another. And I think
Well said.
I think that is a must. Sorry, I think I just kind of ramp stuff back up, but
No,
I think
that
when we were
was good.
ramping down, but I think that is a must for us.
That's powerful, bro.
Yeah.
There is a joy above the erotic.
Yeah.
And I think like a part of this recovery that in this revival we hope to see in our churches, man, it's gonna have widespread effects on how we use the internet, how obviously how we treat each other,
Right.
but it'll speak to our strongholds as well.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Amen.
Good.
This has been a special edition of Southside Rabbi, where we've partnered with Shaping the Culture with Ebenezer. My name is KB.
I mean, the dream.
Ebenezer.
We out of here.